The Titanic story. The story of the Titanic is one of the most famous true stories in history. It is a story of hope, pride, sadness, and tragedy. The Titanic was not just a ship, it was a dream of modern progress and human achievement. People believed it was the greatest ship ever built. It was called the unsinkable ship, but its first journey turned into one of the biggest disasters of the 20th century. The Titanic was built in Belfast, Ireland, by the White Star Line Company. It was the largest ship of its time and was considered a wonder of modern engineering. It was about 882 feet long and 92 feet wide. It had 9 decks, 4 tall smokestacks, and huge engines that could carry it across the Atlantic Ocean. It had space for more than 2,000 passengers and about 900 crew members. It was not just big, but also very luxurious. The ship had swimming pools, gyms, libraries, fine restaurants, and beautiful cabins. The first-class rooms looked like rooms from a palace. Even second- and third-class passengers had better facilities than many other ships of that time. The Titanic began its first journey on April 10, 1912, from Southampton, England. It was going to New York, America. On board were some of the richest people in the world, like businessmen and nobles, but also many poor immigrants who dreamed of a new life in America. People were excited and proud to travel on this great ship. The ship stopped at France and Ireland to pick up more passengers before it crossed the Atlantic Ocean. Everyone believed they were safe because the Titanic was said to be unsinkable. But the truth was very different. On the night of April 14, 1912, 4 days after leaving England, the Titanic was moving through the cold waters of the North Atlantic. The night was clear, but very cold. The ship received warnings from other ships about icebergs in the area, but the captain continued at high speed. Around 11:40 p.m., the Titanic struck a huge iceberg on its right side. The iceberg tore open several compartments of the ship below the waterline. The builders had designed the Titanic to stay afloat even if 4 compartments were damaged, but this iceberg opened 6. Water rushed inside and the ship began to sink slowly. At first, many passengers did not understand the danger. The Titanic looked too strong to sink. Some continued their parties, music, and games. But soon it became clear that the ship was going down. Panic began to spread. The greatest tragedy was that there were not enough lifeboats. The Titanic carried only about 20 lifeboats, which could save around 200 people. But there were over 2,200 people on board. This meant that more than half the people had no chance to escape. The crew began to load women and children into lifeboats first. Some boats were lowered half empty because many passengers did not believe the ship would sink. As the water rose higher, the situation grew desperate. Families were torn apart as men had to stay behind while women and children left. Musicians on the ship kept playing their instruments to calm people, even as the ship tilted and sank lower. Many brave crew members and passengers sacrificed their lives to save others. Around 2:20 a.m., on April 15th, the Titanic broke into 2 pieces and disappeared under the sea. Over 1,100 people lost their lives in the freezing water, while only about 700 survived. The survivors were later rescued by another ship, the Carpathia, which arrived hours later. For the families who lost loved ones, the tragedy was unbearable. The whole world was shocked when the news spread. How could the greatest and unsinkable ship sink on its very first journey? The Titanic disaster taught the world many lessons. After the tragedy, new laws were made for ships. Every ship had to carry enough lifeboats for all passengers. Radio communication was made stronger, and ice patrols were started to watch for icebergs. The Titanic showed that no matter how advanced human technology becomes, nature is always stronger. It also showed the bravery and sacrifice of people in times of great danger. Today, the Titanic lies at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, about 2.5 miles deep. In 1905, its wreck was discovered by explorers. Since then, many studies, documentaries, and movies have been made about it. The Titanic is remembered not just as a ship, but as a symbol of human pride, tragedy, and courage. People all over the world still feel sadness for those who lost their lives and respect for those who showed bravery. The Titanic story is more than just the story of a ship. It is a reminder that life is uncertain and that human beings should always remain humble before nature. It is also a story of hope and sacrifice, as many people helped others in their final moments.